Hey everyone, I wanted to have a quick discussion topic today since we haven't necessarily had one for a while. And today I wanted to try to tackle expeditions and expedition tours as they're currently constructed in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. And if you haven't necessarily thought about expeditions or expedition tours in quite a while, no one would necessarily blame you, since pretty much for quite a long time now, this has been one of those features and hunting options that has kind of gone by the wayside. If you remember, expeditions have been around essentially since the beginning in the early days of the Monster Hunter franchise. They used to serve a purpose back in the day whenever you needed to farm a specific set of materials or even small monsters. You could essentially go into any sort of given map and get your farming materials as long as you wanted, and you could easily avoid major big monsters. You weren't necessarily going to be harassed in that regard. Some of them would even have, the option to have like no big monsters. So you would just simply go there and deal with whatever gathering options you wanted to deal with. Of course, in later games, you saw that small monsters would end up getting their very own quest. So if you needed it for essentially, let's say, jaggy parts, if you needed to craft some sort of materials or armor, you could just hunt the obligatory 20 jaggy, slay 20 jaggies quest and get your materials that way. So even by the early editions of slaying small monster quests, which we started to end up seeing, I believe in Monster Hunter 2 and certainly by 3, they started to lose a little bit of their own purpose. Now, what they do still serve some sort of benefit by having no limit on a hunt that you can hunt multiple monsters in, which are all randomly popping up left and right, which is a benefit to some people, I presume. You will notice that monsters will appear new monsters will appear in roughly about every 10 minutes or so, but you're mostly hunting alone, something that you can easily do in a normal quest for a specific monster. You don't necessarily have to worry about the RNG giving you that Pyrarachnocadaki in the lava caverns, when you could just do the normal hunt for any one of those Pyrarachnocadakis in any of the maps. Now, this is where I want to begin to talk about how Capcom, I think, could go ahead and improve expeditions and actually make them worthwhile, because this is something that we saw very recently. Even back in Monster Hunter World, you saw that you could get investigations out of them if you continually find the fireflies and stack up those points. If you wanted research points, of course, you could just go ahead and farm any of those materials, the mud prints and stuff like that. And you could just simply start getting those research materials and eventually get the investigations that way. So they did serve a purpose for one of the biggest end game purposes that game had to offer. This was also the most optional form if you wanted to find endemic life forms, especially some of those rarer ones, which you wanted to do if you wanted to decorate your room. Remember that in World and Iceborne, you had the option to decorate your room with plenty of endemic life forms and basically deck it out however you want. Also, you had the option to be able to do side quests within the investigations as well. So they served a double purpose in that regard. So you had a purpose for actually continually going in, exploring a map, getting the research points, getting those investigations, getting the endemic life forms, and continuing to do side quests. But it all changed when it came to Rise and Sunbreak. They became a bit more limited. Expedition tours now only basically served a handful of purposes since then. Like for example, in base Monster Hunter Rise, if we were looking to stack up money, you could go into the lava caverns, for example, during an expedition, during a mining upsurge. This would get you plenty of mining materials, which you could, of course, in turn, go ahead and sell and stack up money relatively easy. The same could also have been done if you needed like early Komura village points as well. If you wanted to farm up during a specific upsurge for that as well, you had the opportunity to do that. Not that you ever needed that many to begin with, since if you were actually playing the game in the most optimal manner, you could simply just take advantage of doing the sub quest during each one of your hunts. So of course you could just gather a couple of mining materials here, pick up a couple of herbs here and there, and stack up those points every single one of the hunts. Now with master rank on top of that, if you have sometimes they just simply tell you like, hey, kill a monster, provide a status buff, sometimes trap a monster here or there, and you're continually getting commemorative village points without ever having to do even the expeditions at that regard. And this is now endgame related, which of course translates now to some of the limitations that they have. Remember that Monster Hunter Rise introduced followers and anomaly monsters. So expeditions in both Rise and Sunbreak do not let you bring in followers, basically one or two or at all. You're just simply you and your dogs versus whatever the map wants to throw at you. You cannot fight anomaly monsters as well. You cannot even find anomaly materials or curiously charged materials to stack up investigation points as well. This would be the little glowing like plants or mining spots with the red glowing curio. So almost all of the endgame related stuff, or pretty much close to the endgame related features, are completely cut off from expeditions in Sunbreak. Therefore, unlike World, like I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, where they serve some sort of purpose in Rise and Sunbreak, they completely fall short. And honestly, I don't know how many times I've said this, but Capcom needs to improve this specific feature, but also other ways for you to be able to keep doing endgame related content and keep these options viable. I've made separate videos talking about the Rampage and how they could actually make that still a viable option if you want to take advantage of it. But now I also was thinking about expeditions and how simply just giving you the option to bring in followers into an expedition would automatically perhaps uptick the chances of you being able to want to do that, since you're not locked into one specific hunt for one specific monster with your followers. Now you can just hunt multiple ones. One of the most annoying things about follower hunts is that you're just locked in for that one specific monster. These serve a great purpose, and if you don't necessarily want to play with people online, you can do it offline relatively easy, especially if you bring Minoto and Hinoa with their hunting horns. I made a separate video about that a few months back, where they're just so good if you want to bring them with hunting horns. They're so supportive. It's a great option. If you haven't necessarily checked it out, make sure you do so. And if you could bring them into expeditions, that would go a long way. And of course, the same thing can be said for anomaly monsters. Let them have at least a chance to come across an anomaly monster. Now again, every single monster that appears in an expedition is just completely RNG. Every 10 minutes they will reset, and they'll, the monster you're fighting will, stay, but the other two monsters, chances are they're going to go away, and other ones will pop up. Give me the chance that anomaly monster will randomly appear in an expedition, since we do know now that is a possibility just in the game in general based on the lore. So that would certainly help. Let me farm some anomaly materials, of course, to stack up the points between hunting, let's say, a normal monster and, perhaps with the chance, as I'm waiting for an anomaly monster to pop, let me go ahead and find some anomaly spots to be able to get some research materials and, of course, stack up those points as well. All that would actually help. Adding just those two simple features, the option to be able to have anomaly investigation monsters appear in an expedition and the chance for me to be able to bring followers, would just expedite this a whole heck of a lot more, and it give this specific feature, which again has been around since the early days of Monster Hunter, a real purpose once again, something that we haven't necessarily seen it having in Monster Hunter Rise and in Sunbreak for quite a while, other than, of course, like I mentioned before, if you needed to really power up either your bank or specifically Kamura village points. Now, the only real thing that I've ever seen people post is the ones who take advantage of expeditions are the ones who post on social media sharing that they farmed for like 3 hours. They basically stacked 3 pages worth of rewards, which is neat to do, I guess, but you're not going to be doing that relatively often. And most of the time, you're just going to end up doing a normal hunt and most likely play with others online. Expeditions do give you that option to play with others, but, again, so many limited options that at the end of the day, you feel like Capcom could address them in a relatively easy fashion and provide you with more things to do. And at the same time, just provide a little bit of a different variety and a different flavor of a hunt, which is one of the biggest benefits I think Sunbreak has had. It has multiple ways for you to be able to hunt a monster, different flavors in order for you to be able to get into a quest. You're still going to be just hunting a monster. You're still just going to be killing it, taking the rewards and crafting your armors. That's still just the same gameplay loop, but they flavor it in a different manner. And expeditions have been relatively stale to non-existent for quite a while. So I think making them more viable would go a long way to keep them a little bit more fresh. But that's certainly some of the topics that I wanted to discuss today. Certainly want to hear your guys' feedback. Are you doing expeditions? Do you even care about that option at this point in time? Certainly, since it has been kind of downgraded so far in Rise and Sunbreak, I certainly would love to hear if you're taking advantage of them as of now. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.